All right, in this video, I'm going to be speed running everything that you need to know about consumer psychology to win in e-commerce, right? Now, there's obviously going to be a lot of nuance depending on the products that you're selling and what customer avatars you're going through, but fundamentally, you need to know why people buy products in the first place. If you want to find winning products, if you want to curate winning ads, and if you want to be able to succeed in e-commerce in general, right? So let's hop into it. So I got this quick document that I prepared, and this is just going to run through like literally just fundamentally the most important things that you need to understand. And I'm going to speed run through it. Some of these things you're going to know. A lot of them you're not going to know unless you've taken a psychology course in high school or in college. Fortunately, I did. And so I actually did get some benefit out of that and out of some things in school. But we're going to run through it, right? So there's something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And it falls, it basically says that anything that a human is kind of drawn and naturally attracted to or psychologically, physiologically attracted to it falls in one of these kind of 5 buckets: self-actualization, esteem, love and belonging, safety needs, and physiological needs. Okay. And I've kind of, so to explain this in a simpler way, right? You have people buy based on necessity, right? So things like food and water, based on safety and security. That's why COVID-19 masks, sanitation products did incredibly well during that time. Connection and belongingness, right? So this could be getting toys for their kids, animal, pets, things of that nature. Increased esteem, that could be clothing, makeup, shapewear, things of that nature, or to maximize their own human potential / creativity, right? That's what I would consider self-actualization, but to each their own in terms of how you interpret that. And these can be things like supplements and nootropics so they can focus and they can, get stuff done if they're more of like an entrepreneur. This could be like a meditation or a mindfulness journey, just something that's going to help them level up and, unlock the best version of themselves, essentially. That's how I kind of perceive and interpret that. So essentially you want products that fall under one of these categories, if not more of them, because you can 100% have overlap in these categories. And that's what we kind of call niche stacking. In this case, you can kind of call it psychological trigger stacking, where you look and you see what characteristics make up a product. And you say, hey, if there's more than one of these psychological triggers, then it's probably going to be a really good product that's going to get people to become, emotionally invested prior to becoming financially invested in whatever the products it is that you're selling, right? Now, I like to break these down into kind of 2 layers, right? So layer 1, these are usually like the strongest forms of psychological, attractiveness of a product. You're going to have friction reduction. So like, does this make my life easier in some way? That's why I think products like, the Roomba have done so well, that just vacuum your house without you having to lift a finger. And that's why they could charge $300 for, this little piece of machinery that can, that it's pretty simple, right? And that's $300. And it's because people are lazy, and naturally this is something that makes something easier, right? Then you have fear or comfort, right? So you either want to go away from fear, or this is something that's going to provide comfort. So, that could be a calming blanket, a weighted blanket, or it could be, something like, a knee brace, even if you don't have pain, but using it proactively if you're older and you're active, so that you don't experience that in the future, right? So you're using it as a proactive measure, or you might be, using an ice pack as an alleviation measure so that you can receive comfort, right? And there's so many different products that fall under these buckets that we've sold in the past that have done well. You have personal wellness, right? So will this help someone, kind of look or feel better? You have pain avoidance. Does this product solve a problem? Why do you think big pharma and pain medications are, multi-trillion-dollar industries? That's why, right? If you have major pain, then you are willing to pay a lot of money to get rid of that pain, right? Then you have status. So will this product increase someone else's perception of me, right? So you can think, fancy wall art canvases or furniture, right? Someone's not necessarily buying that to like fill a void or to solve a problem, but maybe when they bring guests over, it's a nice conversational piece. It's something that makes them look bigger than they actually are, right? Other times they might just buy it for themselves because they think it looks cool, but like that might be an example, right? That's why people buy cars that they probably shouldn't be buying or that they can't afford, is because they want to make themselves look better to other people around them than they actually perceive themselves as, right? Because if they had any type of confidence in themselves, then they wouldn't need to buy material things to prove to people that don't give a shit about them that they are worth something. But that's a whole different conversation. Then you have connection. So will this increase your connection with the world around you, with someone else? That's why things like, a mobile device is such a valuable product, because you feel more connected to the world around you, to your friends, family, etc. But that can come in a variety of different ways, right? That could come in the form of, a pet, a custom pet necklace, where you feel more connected and belong, connected to your animal, especially after maybe they might have passed away, right? That's why there's one of the products that did incredibly well recently was this, not recently, probably about a year and a half ago. It's probably still doing well now, is a tombstone. Maybe I'll pop it up in this video if I get it edited. But maybe basically it's this like tombstone QR code that will show the journey through either images, videos of that person's life, so that you can, commemorate them, so that other people can kind of see, who they were as a person, etc. And that's a really cool way to feel connected to someone who might have recently passed away, right? Then layer 2, these are generally like weaker, or they're not as like black and white. It's not like, it's very clear. Sometimes this can be like up for interpretation or opinion. That's financial savings. So, obviously you're selling a product that costs money, but if that has the opportunity to save someone a lot more money than it costs, that's why solar is such a massive industry, right? Whether there's government grants or whatever that goes into it, you're effectively saying, hey, you're going to pay this fee, but it's so that you can save a hell of a lot more down the road, however that looks, however that's constructed. And that's why that's such a good product, right? That's why it's such a good offer. You have happiness. So like, does this genuinely just bring joy to someone's life? Even if it doesn't like directly solve a problem. And, that's why people make impulse buys. Like, that's what the whole premise around impulse buys is, that it brings them a little glimmer of short-term joy. And sometimes that's all you need, that kind of spark, in order to have someone purchase the product, right? Now, if you have that paired with some of these other things, that's where it really, you'll sell a product off the shelves quickly, right? Then you have necessity and survival. So is this product complementary to survival? Now, you can argue that we as humans, we don't actually need nearly as much as we did thousands of years ago in order to survive. We don't have to go hunt down, a deer in order to feed our village for the next week, right? We could just go to the grocery store. And so, you can position products as needs and as necessities. And that's what we always try to do, right? We try to show the consequences of not buying our product and almost make them feel like you're going to die without this, right? So like, let's say that we're selling a survival straw, right? That filters water out of any river, any body of water. Then we say, hey, if you're a hiker, you're a camper, this might literally save your life. And you might not live if you don't have this thing and you encounter, this terrible predicament that you could find yourself in, right? That maybe thousands of people, if not tens of thousands of people, find themselves in globally every year. And you never think it's going to be you until it actually happens. And so that would be an example of a product you could sell that, like, do you and I need that if we're in our homes and we have running water nearby? No. But might someone need that at some point in time? Has someone needed it in the past? Absolutely. And can you make them think that they're going to need it in an ethical way that's not just like fear mongering, right? Because that's not what we want to do in order to sell products effectively. Okay. Now let's get into how we actually validate a singular product, right? So we have consumer psychology. So we know how we're going to, basically if we want to make a great landing page, we want to make good copy, good email, good creative, we have to integrate as many of those psychological pillars into our advertising assets as possible. And we want to increase the perception of use case in those scenarios of that product, like where it fits into any of those buckets. Okay. Now, when it comes to product validation, so validating the specific product, not necessarily, woo-woo consumer psychology stuff, we have a couple of very, very straightforward things, right? How easy it is to buy this product somewhere else. That's so important. Like, can someone go on TikTok Shop and buy it tomorrow? Can someone go on Amazon and like buy it right now? Can someone go into Walmart, Target, like a local store? If they Google it, is it really easy to find somewhere else? Because chances are, if it is, then it will be slightly less worth selling, right? It doesn't mean that it's not going to be worth selling, because sometimes having that accessibility means that there's awareness around it, and that might not have just been the right time for them to buy it, or they might have seen it somewhere, but they never, had the opportunity to purchase it. Now you're re-presenting it to them and you're reminding them, because most people just need to be reminded to buy your product as opposed to like overly educated on it, right? then that could be a great opportunity. It could show that the market is in demand and that there's been previous people who have sold it well, et cetera. But right, so these aren't necessarily good or bad things, but they're things that you need to factor in your decision-making skills of moving forward with a product or maybe withholding from testing a particular product because of the ease of accessibility, right? So again, that could be retail, Amazon, Google Shopping, et cetera. So again, is it being sold on Amazon? How many listings are there? Are there listings from reliable suppliers? Are there lots of reviews? Are there good orders, et cetera? Is it the exact product or is it just a similar product, right? Then you have, is the product in a physical retail locations, right? It might be in the United States, in which case we could sell it in other countries, or we could still sell it here. It just might be a little bit more competitive, more difficult, right? So just things to keep in mind. Does the product have any brand name ad listings? So if you Google it, is it just all a bunch of AliExpress and Temu listings? Because if, chances are, if there's, dozens of Google shopping listings, a lot of times people go to Facebook first to advertise. And then all these Google advertisers, they're smart and they know that people are going to naturally Google the product, see if they can find it somewhere else cheaper. So they mark down the price and then they run Google ads. It's actually a pretty effective strategy, but you end up kind of pricing yourself out and getting commoditized, and it's a race to the bottom on pricing. And that is not what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to race to the top in terms of premium pricing so that we can reinvest into the user experience and give them the best experience possible, right? And the best quality product, best packaging, fastest shipping, best customer support on the back end, et cetera. That's the whole reason why we mark up the pricing, right? So we have a profit and we can deliver the best user experience as possible in exchange for that profit, right? Is it being sold in any competing online stores, right? So how many competitors are there? Is it easy for them to find that product somewhere else and buy it, right? Now, as far as margins and unit economics, this is very important for me. And it's going to be even more prevalent and important as we navigate these crazy tariffs in terms of increased cost of goods, slower shipping times, percentages of the value of the product being upcharged as a tariff, right? We have to be really mindful of these things. So traditionally, we're looking for a 3 or 4x markup. And a big reason for that is because we good return on ad spend on Facebook is about a 2. So if you just had a 2x markup, and you got a 2x return on ad spend, which is considered good, you wouldn't have any money left over to actually profit, right? That's why we were shooting for that 3 or 4x markup from the product price, right? So very, very important. Now, I like to look at it from the perspective of, hey, if I doubled the price of this, would it look like a steal to the customer? So that's a good kind of pulse check on that, right? Now, this $25 or higher markup potential, also really important because a good CPA, cost per acquisition on Facebook or TikTok, is around $20, $25, right? So if you only mark up a product by $10, the chances you're going to get a $10 CPA or less and be profitable is really, really, really difficult, right? Now, with the tariffs and all of that, we're even increasing this closer to $35, $40, right? If not higher, right? And also trying to sell in other countries and things. That's a whole different video. But we're definitely trying to have a little bit more cushion during this time of uncertainty on how the supply chain is going to be, fluctuant and how it's going to be impacted. And so you might even want to just factor in a little bit more of a cushion and have a $35 markup, right? Now you're probably saying, well, Kyle, like if I have to have a $35 markup, then that means like the minimum price that I could sell a product for is probably around 40, right? Because to get a product shipped from China, from Mexico, from the US, from wherever, it's going to be at least $5. And my short answer is absolutely, right? The days of selling $20, $25, $30 products are pretty much gone, at least for now, right? And it's very, very difficult to be profitable with those unless, right? And there's a couple exceptions we have here. You're using organic marketing methods where you have no true acquisition costs, which is kind of like a running live from the organic marketing guys because you have to pay for people, for content, for software, for learning what's going on and how to master that method. But, let's say you get lucky, your first ad goes, your first organic post goes viral, then you don't necessarily need this markup because you have almost no acquisition costs, right? You're selling a recurring or subscription-based product, or you have an incredibly well-structured backend. To delete this part because I said it twice. But so if you're selling a subscription-based product, then you can get away with maybe having a slightly lower margin because you know that more is going to be coming on the back end, right? But for most of us, we're looking for first purchase profitability, and that's not the case, right? And again, the reason for this is it's not uncommon to see $30, $40 acquisition costs. So if you only have a $20 markup and you acquire a customer for $30, you're losing $10 for every sale, plus transaction fees, refunds, chargebacks, cost of software, cost of team, all of these other things that for most brands go unnoticed, right? Okay, now lastly, talking about general product characteristics, you've always heard about this like wow factor, right? What does that actually mean? I mean, it's kind of in the eye of the beholder, but chances are the last product you bought that you didn't intend to buy, you just looked at it and it drew you in, right? You're like, whoa, that's cool. That's something that I think that I need, even if you actually don't. And so having something like that where someone looks at your ad or looks at even just the product photos on your website and go, whoa, that's cool. That's probably, so the emotional response that either you get from looking at the product or that putting yourself in the customer's shoes, right, that they get from looking at the product is really, really important to have. So now I might look at a women's shapewear product and be like, you know what, that doesn't really get me going. But if I'm Cindy and I'm, slightly overweight, and when I go to the office, I get chirped at by, a couple of the other girls that are going to their Zumba classes every Friday, even though they, don't have the best physiques either, but that's a whole different story. And I'm soaking myself in that customer avatar shoes. And I look at that product, I'm like, holy shit, that gives me a whole new opportunity to like show up to work more confidently, to, say, screw all those chicks for making fun of me, to increase the likelihood of me getting a promotion in my workplace and all those things. And that sure as hell is going to make me take a step back and be like, whoa, like that's cool. I didn't know that I could do that, right? Without having to sacrifice all these other things that go into getting in better shape, right? Fits a large total addressable market. Really important, but like sometimes overlooked, right? You're like, oh, I'm selling a knitting kit and we make blankets that have Trump's face on them, right? And you're like, okay, well, knitting kind of already a little bit of a small niche. Now you're talking about people who are maybe Republican or that are interested in Trump, and are also interested in knitting, right? Maybe that narrows it down even smaller. And like if it's two huge markets, then that could be really good. But if it's like smaller market within a smaller market within a smaller market, then you're going to run out of people to sell to, right? Now, most of these markets are a lot bigger than you and I could even begin to fathom or even comprehend. But it's really, really important to just sell in a huge market and to sell either a unique product, a unique variation of an existing product, or sell a non-unique product in a unique way, right? Those three methods of selling are generally most effective for us, right? And that's where we find most of our quote unquote winning products. Fitting a specific and passionate niche, that's a cool one, right? Kind of like what I just talked about is if it's a big niche, but it's not really passionate, right? So if I'm selling a Trump hoodie, that's a super passionate niche, right? If I am selling just like a random NASCAR, car on a shirt or on a hoodie, and it doesn't go any deeper than that, then it might not be super specific and super passionate. It's just like a car that has a number on it, but I don't really know what model it is. And maybe it's a black and white one, so I don't really know like what color it would be in real life. That's not going to really get someone going. And it's not, passionate. It might be a little bit more specific, but not really. It's kind of broad, right? We want to get very specific and say, it's this model of car, it's this color, this driver is paired with it. It was driven in this specific, whatever those racing events are, like that's where you get specific and that's where you get passionate. You definitely want as many of these buyer psychology categories as possible. You want to make sure that you abide by policy platform and you're not selling a product that's like trademarked, that's patented, or that violates any policies, making big claims, weight loss pills, anything like that. You want to make sure that there's enough accessible and available content to test it. So what does that mean, right? If your AliExpress listing has great images and it's a product like, a pair of shoes or a shirt or a blouse or a dress, that's fine, right? If it's a wind-up cat toy that requires motion to demonstrate, then you're going to need to make sure that there's some videos on TikTok for it, that there's content on YouTube, on Instagram, that you can pick bits and pieces of, because chances are you don't have the product, you can't film the content yourself yet. You got to pick bits and pieces of it and Frankenstein your own variations of ads. And if that works, then you can go and order the product, ship it to a creator, ship it to yourself, and be the creator, right? And get custom content, right? That you own the rights to and that you won't run into any issues. And that you'll also be able to craft in a unique way where you're creating ads that are using angles and that are selling to specific avatars that maybe haven't been spoken to with that specific product from other companies in the past. And that's what gives you a big competitive advantage, right? You want a low likelihood of damage if that's not already obvious, but some people don't know this, right? They sell lamps that are ceramic and they have a 10% damage rate, and that can crush your business or your ability to process for future brands, right? That you might want to run. You want to make sure that it doesn't have too much complexity with size and variance. And if it does have size and variance, you need to make sure that's accessible to all the countries you're selling to, right? Like I know it sounds obvious, but I can't tell you how many people don't do this, right? Like they get all their orders from Germany and they're selling in US sizes. And so they're all having to do these conversions in their head. And if we just made it more accommodating and more universal, they would get so much better results and so much better performance, right? Evergreen, not essential, right? I can't tell you how many seasonal products that I've sold, but I've sold way more that are evergreen. And all the seasonal ones that I did were mostly like pump and dumps. That's not what we try to do, right? We want to run something for a while and build enterprise value. As corny as that sounds for a dropshipping brand, I can't tell you how many buddies of mine have sold, 7 and even 8 figures with an exit, with an acquisition of their companies, because you build a real company if you're building a dropshipping brand, right? If you treat it like a side hustle, then it might be worth nothing, right? But if you actually get your legs under you and under the brand, you put good team in place, you optimize your supply chain, you make great content, and you're on an uptrend and you sell consistently for 18 months, you can sell for 3, 5, 10 times your annual profit, right? Which sounds nuts, but it's real. And people don't understand that or appreciate that in this business enough. So by selling a product that only sells during Halloween, you're limiting your ability to be able to exit. You're limiting your ability to be able to sell probably 9 to 10 months of the year, right? And you might learn a couple of great skills that you could take into the next brand, and I'm all for that. But if you're looking to build, 7-figure profit per year businesses, then you're probably going to want to land on a product category or one product or multiple products that can be sold all year round, right? And then lastly, you want to make sure that you're selling good products, right? Look at the reviews. If there's not a lot of reviews, order a sample. If you are impatient ordering a sample and you get ready to scale, then as you're getting ready to scale and you have proof of concept in your marketing and your creatives, etc., order a sample, right? Order an express sample from the supplier and then do a ghost order on your website, right? Ordering based on your mom's name and your parents' address so that your supplier doesn't treat you differently with an order that you're express sampling versus an order that you're placing on your website that one of your customers is receiving, right? That's the risk with dropshipping that you have to be aware of and that you have to make sure that you have under control so that you know that you have quality assurance on the product that you're selling, right? So having positive reviews from a similar seller on Amazon, from your AliExpress suppliers, even though a lot of those can be falsified and do get falsified, is important. And then the next best thing, or honestly the first best thing, is actually feeling and touching the product, right? I know dropshipping is sexy and you could sell a product that you don't see, touch, ever feel, don't even know if it's the right size, but that's not the way to do it, right? You want to order multiple samples and come up on a variation of the product that is unique at some point, right? And so that it reduces the ability for other people to compete with you because they see your product, it's a slight different variation, and they look it up on AliExpress and it doesn't even exist there, right? Because you went that one extra mile to make the product better, add a feature to it, change a colorway, add a variant, and then they look it up on AliExpress and poof, it doesn't exist, right? And that's when you really have, like, when you can transition from, just a dinky little dropshipping store to a real, legitimate, scalable e-commerce brand that has enterprise value, right? And all of that is possible through knowing what to sell and knowing why people buy in the first place, right? So I hope this was valuable. This was helpful to you. If you want a copy of this yourself with some additional stuff that we have at the bottom half of this that I keep a little bit more exclusive, then I don't know, you can comment the word psychology, below this video. And actually don't do it below this video because I can't actually message you on YouTube. So that's stupid. But DM me the word psychology over on Instagram at ecommerce_Kyle. And I'll send you over this document so you can make a copy of it. You can move things around and just have it to reflect back on. And again, you could check out some of the secret stuff that we have going on the bottom of this, our product validation scorecard, which is updated from a previous video that I think you're going to like a lot. And it's going to help you be able to choose products or even come up with unique marketing angles, creative ideas, etc., to be able to sell products better than how you're currently selling them. So I hope this was valuable to you. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, an amazing rest of your Q2, which is what we're currently in. And I hope to see you in the next video. Peace.